Hi everyone, and you are welcome to this lecture, Lambda Functions. In this lecture, I'm going to define what a lambda function is. We will see together how we can define a lambda function, so we have to understand the syntax of this function. Also, we are going to learn about map function and filter function. These two functions are very common to be used with lambda functions. Finally, I will end up this lecture by a quick summary, so let's get started. Before I start defining what a lambda function is, I want to define an anonymous function. An anonymous function is a function that is defined without a name. I'm sure that right now you ask yourself, why I need to define a function without a name? And the answer is very simple. Usually we define an anonymous function when we require a nameless function for a short period of time. And this is usually happens when you want to pass your function as an argument to a higher order function. In other words, in Python we can make a function takes another functions as arguments. And this is possible because anything inside Python is an object, even the function itself. Now, if you want to define anonymous functions in Python, you have to use lambda keyword in Python. Let's see the syntax together. First of all, let me show you how we define a lambda function or an anonymous function. I will say function name equal to lambda, which is a reserved keyword. Then you have to put list of parameters that you want to use. So I will say parameter 1, 2, until n, colon, and then an expression that returns the value that your function calculates. Now, if I want to compare this function with the traditional function that we know, you will note that function name here, it's here right now, list of parameters, which is after lambda keyword, and then return expression. Here in lambda function, we don't use return keyword, just the expression itself. Now I'm sure that you ask yourself, we say it's a nameless function, so why I put function name here? Again, in Python everything is an object, so we can assign this function to a variable, which is function name in this case, but most often you will not do that, or if you do that, you are going to use this function name as an argument to another function. Now let's move to PyCharm IDE to see some examples about lambda functions. The first example that I want to show you, I want to assume that I have a function, its name normal function, and it takes one parameter x and it returns x by x. Now if I want to use this function, I will say print normal function and I will put 4. If I run, as you see here, I got 16. Now let me define like this function exactly, but now using lambda keyword. So I will say normal function, but I will call it 1 right now, equal to lambda. Then the parameter that this function take, colon, the expression that this function calculates, as you see here, which is x by x. Now if I print and I take normal function 1, then I pass 4 and run, you will see that I got also 16. So this function, it's equivalent to this function. In this example, when I defined my lambda function, I use only one parameter, but you can use any number of parameters you want. So for example, let me say exp equal to a lambda function. It takes x, y, z as parameters and it returns x plus y plus z. Now let's check this exp function for 1, 2, 3 and run. As you see here, I got 6, which is 1 plus 2 plus 3. Also, when you define your lambda function, don't forget that it's equivalent to a normal function. So I can here, for example, give a default value to one of the parameter. So let me say z equal to 1. So if I run here, I got 6 because z equal to 3. But if I remove now this value and run, z will take the default value, which is 1. Also, because lambda function is like any other function, you can use asterisk args with your function. So let me define a function, its name sum1 for example. It takes asterisk args and it returns the sum of these arguments. Now let me try this function for the following value. So I will say sum1, 1, 2, 3, 4, run. I will get 10. If I put here 5, I will get 50 and so on. So because I used here asterisk args, I can use as many of arguments as I need here. Also, you can use double asterisk keyword args. And now let me say I want to calculate the sum of values of these keyword arguments. In this case, you can pass to your lambda function as many as you want of keyword arguments. So let me say a equal to 1, b equal to 2, c equal to 3 and run. And as you see here, the value is 6. The last important point that I want to mention before I end this code session, that all of the lambda functions that I have defined are in one line of code. So you have to know that if your programs or if your functions should be written over multiple lines of code, you cannot use lambda function. So lambda function is for simple function that can be represented over one expression. Now let's talk about map function. As I mentioned before, one of the main use cases of lambda function is to pass this function as an argument to another function. Map is one of these functions that take a function as an argument. So map, it calls the given function for each item of a given iterable, and the iterable could be anything, list, tuple, etc., and returns a map object of this iterable. So when you use map function, you have to put a function and an iterable, and map will call this function for each item inside this iterable. So the parameters are function, which could be a lambda function or a normal function. It's not a problem. An iterable, which is any object, can be iterated over in a for loop. Now let's move back again to PyCharm IDE to see some examples about map function. In the first example, I want to assume that I have the following list of strs, and it has hi and hello items. I want to write a program that converts each string into lowercase. So I can say, for example, lowered equal to empty string. Then for each s in strs, I want to calculate s.lower, and I want to append this into this list and run. So nothing because I haven't printed yet lowers. So this is lowered, run. As you see here, I got hi, hello. Now let's see how we can solve the same example using map and lambda function. First of all, I will define a function, its name, low, and this function, it's a lambda function that take a string and it return x.lower, which means the lowercase of the string. After that, I will say result equal to map, and map, it's a function that take another function as an argument and an iterable, which is in this case a list, its name strs. First of all, let me print the result itself. If I run this, you will see that I got a map object and I don't understand anything from this object. If you check the type of that object, you will see again it's from the class map. But what I care about right now is what? Is the actual content of result. Map object is an iterable, so you can use for loop to extract the content, or simply you can convert this object into list using list function, and this is known as casting. So if I cast result now using list and run, you will see now that I got exactly the same result of the first program. So in other words, map function apply low function for each item inside the iterable strs. Let's see now another example. Let me assume that I have two lists, the first one list 1 and the second one list 2, and I want to add each item in the first list into its neighbors in the second list. If I say list equal to list 1 plus list 2 and I print the result, you will see that I will get all the items inside one list. Why this happened? Because plus is a concatenation operator, it's not addition operator. Now let me show you how I can solve this problem using map function. So I will assume that I have a function, its name func. It's a lambda function that take two parameters, x and y, and it will give me x plus y. Now I will say map. I want to use the function func for each item inside list 1 and list 2. You will note here that I have used two iterables because my lambda function accepts two parameters. I will put the result here and then I will print the result, and I will not forget to cast the result because it's a map object. If I run, you will see now that I got 2, 4, 6, 8, which is 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, and so on. Again, map will apply function on each item from the first list and the second list. And that's all about map function. The second function that I want to talk about is filter function. Filter is a function that returns an iterable from elements of another iterable for which a function returns true. So you have to know that the function that you want to pass inside filter, and this function is going to be applied on iterable. So you have to know that the function that is going to be passed into filter is a function that returns either true or false. Now, for the items of iterables that give me true, those items will appear on the output of filter function. So function, it can be any function. Iterable, it's any object you can iterate it over in a for loop. Let's see one example about filter function to understand the idea better. I will assume that I have the following list, which has the item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to write a program that will give me the odd numbers from this list. So I will solve this program using filter function. First of all, I will define a function. Its job to take an item and it will check if this item is odd by using modulus operator divided by 2, and the result should not be equal to 0. So for any odd number, the remainder after division by 2 should be not 0. Now let's use the function filter, and filter take a function which return true or false, and as you see here I used an operator which will give me either true or false, and then I will say list. Now if I print the result and run, as you see the result is just a filter object, and this is an iterable. You can extract the item by using a for loop or by casting this iterable into list. So if I print the result now, you will see that I got only 135 because these are the odd items inside this list. If you want to take the even items, you can replace this operator which is not equal into equal and run, and as you see here I got 24, and that's all for this code session. Now let's recap what we have learned in this lecture. First of all, anonymous function has been defined as a nameless function. And we say if you want to define an anonymous function, you have to use lambda keyword in Python. And most often we define an anonymous function when we want to pass a function as an argument to another function. We see together two functions which are map and filters. And these two functions are example of functions that takes another function as an argument, and that's all. Now please refer to lambda functions appendix file, in which you will find the functions that have been mentioned in this lecture have been summarized. Also please refer to the file lambda function challenges, in which you will find some challenges to practice what you have learned in this lecture. Thank you very much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.